So, as we established during our session 0, um, the home that this crew is protecting is a gigantic beetle that lives in Ildathok, a parallel magical world to the main one of Deathwish, in which it's easier for life to flourish, and so things can grow much bigger and much stranger than they can in the normal world. And uh, on that beetle, in the community built under the shelter of its wings, they have a magical item called a Tome of Heroes. This is an item from the First Age, an ancient artifact that helps communities to defend themselves. And the Tome of Heroes, at a time when the community is in great danger, will open itself and it will draft heroes to help protect the community. And so for those heroes, a mark will appear somewhere on their body, indicating to them that they are chosen to defend the town and binding them to the Tome of Heroes so that if they fall, as possibly they will, a successor can inherit their mark and page through the Tome of Heroes to learn everything that they knew. So does everybody want to talk about just a little bit how the mark appeared on your character and how you reacted? Because the Tome of Heroes knows magically that you're somebody who will step up to the plate and defend your town even at the risk of your own life. But you may not think of yourself as someone who will.
Okay. I can go. Okay, so Grigsby was a human, or so he thinks, so he remembers, and the last thing he remembers is getting pissed drunk, as he often does, and getting the shit kicked out of him, and then sort of blacking out. And when he came to, he felt a sort of like aching numbness all around him. And when he looked at his forehands, the first thing he noticed that he, for some reason, was turned into wood. Um, and he ran out, and just, as he was doing, he started created a crazy ruckus. And eventually, he caught himself on like a pool of water, and he saw that the mark had appeared, and he gave a very heavy sigh, a knowing sigh.
Yeah, I can go next.
Go for it.
All right. Ian, would the mark look the same on everybody, or is it different?
It'll look the same on each of your characters. So your next character will have the same mark, but it's not the same as the other players' marks.
Okay. All right. So Jack is a human, sort of itinerant wanderer. He is making camp in a wilderness area, and just happens to notice that on the inside of his forearm, his left forearm, the mark has appeared. What does that mark look like?
That's up to you. It'll be the same
so we
for
can
each
decide
player. Yeah.
As a group. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So each player has their own individual mark, and it'll be the same. And a little design aside is that the purpose of that is if you've built up a relationship with an NPC and then you die, well, then your next character can come and show the mark and say, "Hey, I have all of this guy's memories. I remember that he promised you this, and I'm here to follow through." That sort of thing.
Okay, so I'm going to say that for Jack, that's a stylized pistol on the inside of his forearm.
Cool.
And for Irma, hers are freckles. Those like sprinkling little freckles all over her nose and cheeks and everything, which is fairly unusual for her species. But she just seems to just kind of like brings out the cheeks a little bit more.
And so the three of you gather at the Tome of Heroes, and you see, sure enough, that your names are written on there. You're like, all right, I guess we've got to do what we got to do. So talking to your community, you pretty quickly find out what the great danger is, or you already knew if you were an involved community member before this. And that is the Revenants, which are one of the four most dangerous species in the world, who tend to troop across the land, and they slaughter communities of humanoids, raise them as zombies, and then inject their eggs into the zombies to grow more of them. And this can lead to an exponential growth of these powerful bug-like monsters, which is a bad news for your community.
Ooh.
Well, dang.
So technically, you can go right for the source and try to take out the king immediately. But before that, there are 5 other scores that are probably a good idea to take on first. 2 of those is building up an alliance. This is a group, such as another community, that you want to build closer ties with, and by completing jobs for them, they'll give you support boxes that you can check off during your other missions, to have that community come in and support you in your attempt. And the other thing, the other benefit of having an alliance is it gives you more action dice, which will make your characters stronger. Then the other mission type available are the barons. Each king has 3 barons, and those barons provide support to them if you try to attack them directly. So you have to take out usually all 3 barons before you try and fight the king. And I've only prepared 2 of the baron encounters for today. So your choices for those is you can either go to the town of Scarlet Bay on the coast. There's rumors that the king is going to attack there next and turn all of those people into members of his army. And so you've heard rumors that there's somebody on the inside who's going to sabotage their defenses and let them get overrun. And so dealing with that would be one priority. And then the other is going after an alphil, which is the name for an enormous tree-like biological structure that they place at the sites of their victories. And it spreads one of the alchemic substances called miasma over the area to raise all of the dead as zombies. And then the alphil's job is to raise them into new members of the Revenant army.
If we wanted to see about an alliance, what would those options look like?
So alliances are totally up to the players. You can form an alliance with any community that you make up, or any community that you meet during your adventures. One of the best moments from one of my earlier playtests was when the enemy king that they were trying to take out was the king of a hostile goblin group. And the players ended up making an alliance with a faction within those goblins, and actually getting their help in taking down the cruel and unjust king, and putting a new goblin in control, who is friendlier to their community.
Sure. And
and the other thing I was going to say is, just since you're in Ildathok, another one that came to mind is you could try and make an alliance with a fairy court, since they're the natives of Ildathok that actually travel back and forth between that world and the primary one.
what's the process of traveling between this world and the regular one? What does that look like?
So one of the alchemy elements is called Karinga, and its effect is that if you spread it on a reflective surface, such as a mirror or a body of water, and in that same spot in Ildathok, the same thing happens there. the two connect and it becomes a portal. That may sound hard to do, but one of the other properties of Ildathok is wherever the wind blows in Ildathok, everything there is erased away and replaced with what's in the same spot on Earth.
Neat.
So if on Earth you set up a mirror, cover it in Coringa, and then wait for the wind to blow, it'll turn into a portal on its own because a mirror will appear in that same spot on Earth.
Okay.
And so your community has several of those portals set up and ready to go.
Okay. So we're standing around the book. Would it be presumed that we know each other already, or that we're meeting each other and kind of looking at each other and going, okay, I guess we're the chosen ones?
Yeah, it's up to you whether you've got a pre-existing relationship. The book has just drafted you arbitrarily.
So I'm thinking Grigsby looks like a wooden tall bender. And also in terms of his character, he would be, the tree sounds intriguing because I feel like he would think that he could find some way to become human again with that one, or the fairies too, because maybe the fairies know some way to turn him back.
So aside from defeating the revenants, your goal is to get back to being human.
Gonna try my best. I don't want to be cursed to this life.
So I'm guessing we're kind of standing around introducing ourselves and trying to figure this out, talking over the options. Does that sound like what we're doing here?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, what do you think, ma'am?
Well, I don't know. And you'll actually see Irma is stuck in a very tall, like one of those kitchen soup pots, kind of filled up with water, and it's strapped down with twine to an even smaller beetle, and she's all kind of nestled in it like it's her own little personal jacuzzi. She's just sitting there, just kind of relaxing and chilling in the heat. And you'd be like, well, we either need to take over them or we just need to go ahead and get rid of the buggers.
Yeah. Well, if you don't mind my saying, I can't help but notice that you seem to be a bit of a goblin. And I'm wondering if you have any connections with the fairies that we could take advantage of.
It was my skin tone, wasn't it? Just gave it all.
Just a little bit, yes.
Well, I mean, the fairy folk don't really appreciate Irma's cooking usually. So, I mean, I guess I can go ahead and make him a pie or something. Would that help, do a little bit of that olive branch you're talking about?
I was just wondering that, yeah.
Do you smell a pine scent around here?
Maybe just a little bit, yeah.
And then
Grigsby, is that you?
I know you're talking about me, but I can't smell anymore, and it's freaking me out. He's just gonna rub the his I guess like carved into him, his mark, and just try to rub it off like, no.
I don't think that's coming up.
I mean, I hear really spicy food helps with the with getting your sense of smell back. I can whip you up something special.
He looks up and his eyes kind of glow and he's like, I'll do anything. I'll try anything.
I got the perfect chili for you.
You seem to be the one in most distress. Do you have a thought about what would be most helpful to you right now while we're pursuing our quest?
The fairies would be, I think Grigsby would probably go with the plan. because he's curious about the goblins too, or not the goblins, the
fairies.
fairies. Yeah.
Yeah. Which in this setting are a kind of ant.
The kind of ants. Interesting.
Yep.
What more do we know about them?
So the things you know about the fairy ant court that's nearby, is that they're one of the few species that regularly travels back and forth between Ildathok and the Earth, is what I'm currently calling the primary planet.
Close enough.
Yeah, and they do so that they can carve big nests, anthills, in our world on Earth, and then when the wind blows, it'll appear in Ildathok where they live primarily. And the reason they live primarily in Ildathok is because the Fae are practitioners of what people call the Fae art. Which is the ability to take advantage of the permissive biology of Ildathok to create hybrid creatures and modifications. And so that's where some species like minotaurs and centaurs came from, is the experimentation of the fairies. And so they like to do a lot of biological experimentation like that.
It's not cool, fairies.
They can be villains. They can also be allies.
Do we have any sense of what they might want? Would they be? I'm assuming they wouldn't just automatically, say yes, let's go get the revenants together.
Yeah.
So do we have anything we think might be leveraged to help them get onto our side?
So not yet, but you can do a score for them, a mission that will warm them up, and that'll form the first level of the alliance. And then you can do a harder score called a quest to upgrade that alliance into a grand alliance where they're your best buds.
Can it be delivering pie of some sort?
It can be delivering pie through danger.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Well, everyone's cool with that.
But it can start with pie anyway.
Okay.
So, but because, and this is one of the differences for anybody familiar with other Forged in the Dark games like Blades in the Dark, in Deathwish, encounters are prepared beforehand because I have to be a lot more rigorous about ecology and alchemy. And also because to really challenge characters in this system, you need to really present them with a significant challenge. Lots of tough enemies, puzzles, terrain, and so on that make things challenging. And so you have to prepare missions in advance. And since in session 0 we didn't decide on an alliance, I didn't know you were going for the fairies.
Okay.
But next session we can do the pie delivery through danger to form an alliance with the fairies.
That's totally fine. So right now, the choices that we have in terms of what you have prepared are those two barons.
Yeah, the Alphil or the Scarlet Bay one.
Okay.
Which one had the trees?
An Alphil is kind of like a tree, except it is made of several revenants sort of stuck together in a hideous biological evolution catalyzed by mutagen.
Ew.
But it kind of looks like a tree, so there's that.
Which one with the resurrectee people? Grigsby is definitely interested in that.
The revenants?
Okay, so same, yeah.
Yeah.
That's Grigsby's vote. It's like, well, they're good with bodies. Maybe they can make me a body.
And the other advantage of going to Scarlet Bay is it will give you another option for an alliance if you find you like any of the groups in that town.
Mm-hmm.
The Alphil is going to be much more of just a directly antagonistic mission, because any mission in Deathwish can be resolved diplomatically if you convince them to no longer be a threat to your town. But convincing an Alphil is a mighty challenge. While most of the people in Scarlet Bay would be happy to work together with you instead of being eaten by a horde of ravenous bugs.
Right.
Smash
so going up and just talking to him, we would call kind of a Deathwish.
Deathwish position, yes.
Yeah.
You have chosen diplomacy, Deathwish.
Although, after this session, you'll get a veteran ability, and one of the choices there is Parlay, which makes your first diplomatic attempt of each mission controlled position, no matter what. So maybe that'll be a good reason to go for the Alphil second if somebody does want to take the diplomatic approach.
We throw sweets at them. They didn't like it.
I'm not saying you'll have normal effect. You'll probably
Uh-huh.
start at 0 effect with throwing sweets, but you'll also have controlled position.
It'll
So-
be controlled because we'll be throwing those sweets from a good solid distance.
Bring a catapult. There you go.
Okay, so are we saying we want to try it? The Deathwish position, like.
I'm thinking maybe going to Scarlet Bay would be a good first step here.
Okay.
All right.
I'm down for whatever.
So, how are you all getting to Scarlet Bay? It is taken for granted that if you want, you can have a horse. And in this setting, they also have primitive vehicles that use red oil for gasoline that are sort of like an early Model T type of car. And then, depending on your playbook, you might also have other modes of transportation, like a special mount or an even more advanced vehicle.
What is a Krisharex?
Krisharex is a creature that's sort of like a big Komodo dragon looking thing. They're pretty placid. And the main thing they have is they've got molars that are made of the alchemic element Shadowvari and ivory, which when you make sounds with it, those sounds cause emotions in others. And Krisharexes grind their teeth to produce a feeling of fear that they use to drive away predators. But the rideable kind that most people use have those molars dissolved alchemically, not painfully. But if you want one that's just better trained, it could have those molars, and later in the score, if you feel like you need to scare somebody away, you'll have that tool.
Compared to a horse, how are they in terms of just a mount for traveling from place to place?
It's more like an ox. You can ride it, and it can keep up, but it's more about raw like pulling power.
Powerful but slow.
Yeah, a lot of merchants use them to like haul their carts and so on.
Okay. I think that Jack would have a horse.
All right.
Beetle is the superior traveling. Traveling. Saying there, Jack.
Which type of beetle do you have? Is it the javelin, the impaler?
Oh, I actually didn't pick beetle type. I just wrote down
quantum
beetle.
load.
All right, so a legion beetle, of which there's there's sexual dimorphism, where one has more of like a harpooning thing, and then the other one just has like big spikes all over it. So you can compare those in the ecology document. For those of you who haven't looked at Deathwish yet, there's a separate document where all of the world building is laid out and all the ecology is explained. Because I think having a self-consistent world where everything makes sense is an important part of the setting.
Yeah, no, it's really neat.
I would take a car for sure. For sure, Grigsby would have a big old gas guzzling, like a hexagon wheel. You know, it's like just kind of.
Nice. All right. So you've got your big old car, a horse, and a beetle, and you set out on your journey.
Motley crew.
I'm just stuck in the back with the dust and then the exhaust.
Not as motley as it gets.
Don't smell it anymore. Can't smell. Can't breathe. It's all gone.
All right. And so we will skip over the journey on account of nothing significant happens. And you find yourselves at the top of Scarlet Bay. I say the top because the sea is far out in the distance, and it's a solid cliff face that you're up on top of. And then Scarlet Bay itself is one carved out section of that cliff that slopes down to the beach. And so all down that slope, you see merchants traveling to and fro up the one road in and out of the town, making it actually kind of difficult for you to even head down in there. You also see that there are many ships, as this is the only port for miles in either direction where they can actually pull in. And you also see airships taking off, big zeppelins that use another alchemic element called zenith to rise up into the air. And they are also loading on and unloading the goods from the ships and carrying them inland to other communities like yours.
Does it? So it looks like a routine day. They're not worried about attacks from revenants at this point.
Yeah, there's a few guards up here, and mostly what they're doing is checking paperwork, peeking in into people's wagons, seeing that they're not smuggling in anything dangerous. But generally, everybody just seems to be going around their day. There's no fortifications, no patrols, nothing out of the ordinary.
So they haven't gotten the word yet,
Seems like it.
as far as we can tell.
Mm-hmm.
Drop on them.
Grigsby,
Alright.
we need to talk
Yes.
about your driving skills because I don't think that's the only thing you lost.
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. The cigar.
Those tire tracks were everywhere.
Didn't feel a thing. Smoothest ride of my life.
Just don't bump my horse.
I'm gonna
All right.
go
Well,
over.
what do you folks think? Should we just ride in? Should we do a reconnoiter around the cliff and see if anything seems to be coming?
Yeah, so Grigsby's a pretty bad detective or a failed actor in the past life. So yeah, he doesn't have. He's got some thieves' tools, disguise kit, like brass knuckles, a convincing fake, and an air rifle. And I think I can get one more squad or one more class if I want, because I got one in Dabble. But that's what I got on me right now.
Irma's pot is like a Mary Poppins bag. She just has everything in it. Most of it soaking wet, but she has it. So she's got quite a few things. I'm looking here. I mean, I do have an emergency balloon, but I think you're a little big for it, Grigsby. Sorry, buddy. I think you're over the weight limit for it. So not too much in regards of reconnaissance in Irma's realm, but we definitely can if you want to give it a try.
Yeah, in terms of actions, scouting around would use the survey action. And that's another difference for those of you out there familiar with Forged in the Dark, is in Deathwish, what each action does is specifically listed in the rulebook. So you couldn't say, oh, I'm going to use barrel to push my way around and scout around. No, in Deathwish, it's very specific which actions do which thing.
No dabbling in murder.
No, you can't dabble someone to death quite like that.
I'll show you, Ian. I'll show you. Yet.
You could use it as a setup action to find out somebody's weakness, perhaps.
I'll survey. I'll get the first roll out of the way. Why not?
That'll be gather information. So no position or effect here. Just a straight fortune roll.
So I still have 5 potential. So I guess I should probably assign some skill points to it before I do it.
Rolling with 0D is not great odds. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Forged in the Dark family, when you roll dice, if you've got 0 points, you roll 2d6s and take the worst result. So odds are you're going to fail.
Okay, and can I? So I put 2 in there. So I have 2 for survey. All right. Can I
Potential is a mechanic in Deathwish where, since the characters start with a lot of action points, they can spend potential to gain those action points when they need them. That makes it easier for if your character dies and you need to roll up a new one, you don't have to build them out specifically. You could just decide, hey, I really want to survey right now, so I'm going to put some dice in survey. So because it's a fortune roll, technically you can't push.
Oh, all right. So I'll just roll the 2.
Mhm.
And I got a 6.
All right. So if your highest die is a 6, that's a full success. And on a fortune roll, that means you get the information you're looking for and a little more. So
a little more.
when you look around, you see that there's no real patrolling going on the cliffs or at the entrance. But you do see down in the town there's more guards patrolling there, and the port is actually where most of their security is, checking ships as they come in and out, and defending against the various sea monsters that do tend to be attracted to places where ships are coming and going. And so actually most of the city's defenses are there.
What do those defenses look like?
So they've got a variety of siege weapons far back, like cannons. And then closer to the coast, they have soldiers on patrol. And probably they'd have something useful for water defenses, like they may have some. Gotta check the ecology document. Some friendly squids or other cephalopod type creatures, because those creatures are the biggest sentient population in the oceans, and they communicate using a liquid alchemy called Lethian ink that lets them share memories through the water. And so they can hear from scouts farther out, like, oh, hey, there's a giant monster coming your way, get ready. So they'd have some of those out in the water reporting in to land-based humanoids up on shore.
Grigsby knows all about Levian ink. He loves that stuff. It's wild. Good times.
Drinking other people's memories for fun.
You haven't lived until you haven't lived, and now I'm a wooden stump.
Beginning to think this loss of taste and smell might be a good thing for your habits.
Get you on the straight and narrow.
He's got a cigar.
So I did promise that you would find something extra when you did your survey. So the other thing you notice is that from a very particular angle on the cliff, you see that there's a narrow path down the side of the cliff that you think might be used by smugglers to bypass the regular checks at the border. But it's too narrow for your vehicles or horses or anything to take that route if you did want to sneak into the city.
By
or if
beetle?
anyone else did. Maybe. Your beetle can actually fly, I believe. So it might be able to bypass that issue entirely.
What up?
See you later, suckers. Just put some goggles on him. Holds on to pot for dear life. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to suggest we just take the regular road into the town.
All right.
Even beyond the smuggling route?
Yeah, we're not really smuggling anything. Do either of you all have anything you're concerned about the guards being bothered by?
Looks to Grigsby.
That you see what it's like? Do you understand what it feels like to be in this body? Everybody judges. Sorry.
We're doing our best to help you with this, sir.
The smuggling route might be a good idea on how to get out of town if we need to. Might as well take notice of where it starts and ends if we need to get out of Dodge quick.
I have
the bottom end of it does go down into the warehouse district where goods from the ships are stored, and you would guess that maybe there's not a lot of guard patrols through that area.
Ooh, What if you use Grigsby as a disguise and you disguise him as like a big thing of lumber to like log in?
If you covered up the Philosopher's Stone, I don't think the guards would be able to see. Do you have the disguise?
I sure do. Yeah.
Then yeah, I think you could definitely pass yourself off
Yes.
as a piece of lumber.
Yes.
Of course, a piece of lumber driving a car would be a little more challenging.
Yeah, yeah. Hand me those keys. I'll be real nice not to scratch that paint.
It's gonna hand it over.
All right.
Good.
So you're gonna drive up to the customs agent at the top of the town.
Grigsby's not happy about it, but yes.
All right. And so he's going to give the car a quick look over, and he's like, this all looks normal. And he looks at the two of you who look like people right now, and he's going to say, all right, if you've got any heavy weapons, you got to hand them over, and we'll stash them here until you're ready to leave town. And so if you agree to let him search you, then you won't be able to pull out any weapons that are load 3 or higher when you're down in the town.
So I asked him, what exactly is the official definition of a heavy weapon?
It's anything that weighs about this much, and he gestures to about 3 load.
Okay.
I'm looking at my my item sheet here.
Yeah, I'm taking a quick peek as well.
And one thing that we can do, and this is another thing about the Forged in the Dark system, is if later they're down in the town, they're like, oh, actually, I did want a big heavy weapon. They can flash back to this moment and roll to have smuggled something in after all.
Yep.
Quantum mechanics.
Well, sir, I have nothing to declare.
All right, then, and you?
You wouldn't check a lady's bathwater. I got nothing.
he looks down at your pot and he's like, all right.
This is how I get my skin so nice. I just keep it moistened and lotioned all the time. That's all it is.
He motions to one of the other guards and he says, nothing like iron or explosive could be in there, so it's fine, right? And he's like, sure. What's a little goblin gonna do anyway? And they wave you on.
Well, you have a nice day.
You too.
Want me to get you some muffins or cookies in town?
We wouldn't mind. We would not mind the courtesy.
I ain't never seen a guard that didn't like muffins.
If I come across a good bakery, I'll make sure to get 2 just for you both boys.
Thank you. Wait, what was that? All right. And so you drive and horse ride down into Scarlet Bay.
Ow. Ow.
And once you're past the view of the guards, you can unfold from your lumber configuration.
Yeah, lumber doesn't complain, you know.
You know, it didn't even hurt. I don't even know why I said it. It's just like I had to or something.
Sort of a
It's
habit.
really weird. Yeah. Just looking at his wooden self like this is. It's been a long couple of days.
All right. And so you come down into the town, and the first thing you notice, now that you're up close to the buildings, is there's a lot of posters up. Some that say, re-elect Mayor Becker, and some that say, elect Tom. And they're each posters of large white humanoids who, and I mean large in the rotund sense, not in the larger than a human being sense. And you see them as you go along, and you see that the posters for Mayor Becker are far more numerous. And you come to a stop, and you find like a lodging that'll let you park your car and hitch up your horse to check out the town on foot.
All right. Looks like the fix might be in. All right. Well, we can. I think we can do that and go for a little bit of a walk. Does that make sense to you?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Well, let's have a
Find a
wander.
good bakery.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Keep an eye out for that.
I think this will be a good chance to take our first break
Okay.
right here, and then come back with exploring the town.
Okay. So 5 minutes, perhaps, and we'll see you after 5, everyone.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Okay.